Welcome to another GUI XT video tutorial. Today's topic is about creating a single screen transaction with GUI XT. SAP standard transactions are often made up of multiple screens and tabs that the user has to click through. Here we want to demonstrate how all input fields can be positioned on a single screen. As an example, let's choose transaction MM01 create material and first briefly go through the process of the standard transaction. We highly recommend working with a template material, otherwise it becomes necessary to fill in a large number of fields manually. We are currently in the IDES system within the SAP Business Suite, where we select M01 as our template material, M, Mechanical Engineering as our industry, and among the large selection of material type, let's use HAWA near the bottom. Moving to Select Views, we can choose these options individually or select all. Going to Organization Levels, we need to indicate which plant, storage location, sales organization, etc. we want to use. And on the right-hand side, we specify where the data should be copied from. In this case, we can use the same values as on the left side. Pressing Select View brings us to MM01 Create Material, which has numerous tabs in which data are to be entered. Up here, we have additional screens. Let's click on Additional Data. That doesn't get us anywhere because the field Old Material Number is mandatory. Let's enter something here. At a later date, we will look at configuring the field Old Material Number to fill automatically when a new material is chosen. Now we enter the material description for the various languages. Back in main data, division is currently 02, which we can see is motorcycles in the input help. Let's change that to division 15, electronic parts. The situation is similar in the other tabs. Looking at foreign trade export, we find a separate screen for customs tariff preferences, which we also want as part of our single screen transaction. After having gone through the various tabs and screens, we save and thereby create the material. Now, for comparison, let's go through the procedure using the GUI XT solution. We click on Fast Material Entry, a button that has been added using GUI XT. Then enter material information and organization levels via the drop-down menu. However, it is even more efficient to select one of the predefined templates. Choosing either Plant 1000 or Plant 1200 causes the material and organization levels to change accordingly. Later, we will define another template, but let's use Plant 1200 for now and press Continue. And we see that the information for Plant 1200 has been read in and that all available input fields are displayed on a single screen. It is now very convenient to make changes, and in many cases data entry is further facilitated by drop-down lists. Let's again choose 15 electronic parts as the division. Material descriptions can now be changed in various languages. Because all input fields are visible at the same time, it is no longer necessary to navigate through diverse tabs and screens. We can now easily change values in the customs tariff preference table, or go into the sales text where, after selecting the language, the text can now freely be edited. Notice that the old material number has been automatically updated. Not only are all fields visible at once in the screen, we can also make changes to the input fields in any order we desire. If we are finished with data entry, the next step is to press Save. If, however, there is something we need to change that is not available on the fast material entry screen, we make these additional changes by pressing the More Fields via standard MM01 button. In this case, let's save. Notice that the values are transferred to MM01 in the background. All standard MM01 checks will now take place. To convince ourselves that everything has worked as it should, let's initiate MM02, change material. Select the views that interest us. Enter organizational levels. And have a look. The old material number is correct, as is the division. The sales text has been changed, as well as the customs tariff preferences. Let's now go back to MM01. Keep in mind that material maintenance in the SAP system is highly configurable. For example, depending on the field, material type, or plant, different fields may be displayed or designated for input. Thus, it's important to specify the exact configuration of the solution you require before starting to implement a single screen solution for MM01. Going into transaction OMSR, we can have a look at the configuration of MM01. Let's position on the field Old Material Number, also called MARA bis MT. After selecting, we see that the old material number is marked as Entry Required. Going back and looking at the field group details, we find a checkbox under Field Attributes that controls whether or not the field is copied from the template material, which in this case is not activated, and explains why the data were not automatically transferred in our example. We do not want to have to recreate all these processes in our GUI-XT solution. Thus, we need to specify in advance exactly what should be implemented in the GUI-XT solution, and if necessary, provide the user with a warning message that no fast entry is possible for a given material type. After this introduction, we now want to turn our attention to the implementation in GUI-XT. We will not be able to go through the entire procedure in the video, but rather demonstrate how to make modifications to the GUI-XT solution. Looking at fast material entry for plant 1200, you will notice that we are registered in English. However, other languages are supported, and we have kept our scripts largely language neutral. Here we see the solution with a French language login. Or here with the German, with their appropriate labels. To simplify things, the labels in our scripts reference the SAP data directory wherever possible, so that we don't have to manually type in the field labels for each language. If you are sure you only need one language, the reference dictionary can be omitted. However, we generally find this tool quite convenient. Let's now have a look at the relevant GUI-XT scripts. To do this, we must go to the GUI-XT script editor and open current script for the initial screen of the transaction MM01. Notice the include statement, which is run once per SAP GUI session via a switch and introduces all the labels not available in the reference dictionary. For example, the group labels. In contrast, the field labels are available in the dictionary. Here, the labels are given in various languages, with the default language English at the end. The labels are read into variables, which are then referred to in various scripts instead of the actual fields. Whether fast material entry is active is controlled by the variable MM01 quick status. When the function is inactive, a push button for activating fast material entry is displayed and the screen display is modified accordingly. The label of the push button is referenced as the variable MM01 label switch on, which is defined appropriately in the various languages. Back to the control process. The quick status variable controls whether or not we are in fast material entry mode. When the mode is active, an input screen transfers the status. And when the status is inactive, several variables are cleared. When the mode is active, the main script MM01 quick.txt is also processed. This begins by deleting several standard elements not required in quick entry mode. The next step is to process the enter command. When the user presses enter, we do not want the SAP standard function. Rather, we want to stay in the fast material entry mode. The return statement ensures that we immediately return to quick entry mode and bypass the SAP standard logic. In quick entry mode, we have two distinct steps, of which selection of the template is step 1 and pressing continue activates step 2. Let's first take a look at step 2, in which we define push buttons to switch fast material entry off and to select a template. These push buttons use the previously defined variables, reference the dictionary, and again rely on the status we defined earlier. Further down, we have various fields, for example, basic data, which gets its group text or label from our language-dependent variable. The drop-down lists for individual MM01 fields follow and make reference to the SAP data dictionary using the &ddic notation, which means GUI-XT reads the standardized label name for the field from the data dictionary. exactly what field names are used, for example, for the unit of measure, Mara mines, can be looked up, in this case, by running transaction MM02, picking a material, and going to the basic data and the base unit of measure, then pressing F1 for help. Under Technical Information and Screen field, we see the technical name Mara Mines, which we can use in our script to have the field label Base Unit of Measure displayed in the appropriate language in our fast material entry screen. GUI-XT retrieves the field texts from the dictionary once per session. In other words, not every time the quick entry mode is selected. In addition, you can use the statement version number to ensure that the texts are stored permanently in the local GUI-XT cache directory for use in later sessions. Having dealt with multiple language support, let's look now at how templates are implemented in the GUI-XT script and practice defining a new template. Opening up the appropriate script, MM01 Quick Step 1, we find the statement include MM01 read organization data that reads in all organizational data, and in particular the templates and static drop-down lists. MM01 reference.txt defines the templates directly in the script. Each template is represented by a structure variable, MM01 reference, which consists of ID, text, template material number, and specifications of the plant, storage location, etc. Copying one template, we can define a third template for plant 3000. Because of the language dependency, we have also replaced the text plant with the appropriate dictionary reference here. We set M12, plant 3000, storage location 1000 for the new template. After saving, we want to run a test. But first we have to start a new SAP GUI session with the command /o, otherwise the template list will not be read in. Activating fast material entry in the new session with MM01, we can now choose template plant 3000, clicking on Continue, nothing happens. The error message tells us that the storage location 1000 does not exist for plant 3000. This is confirmed when looking at the drop-down list that is dynamically adjusted to the plant number. So let's select another storage location, for example 0001 for the template, and save. Run the transaction in a new session. Go into quick entry mode. Select template 3. Press Continue. And now all the data for the new template are displayed. This is a very convenient way to define individualized templates to expedite creating materials. Next, let's look at how the values are read into the different templates. There are two options for accomplishing this. We can either execute the appropriate SAP transaction, in this case MM03 in the background, or we can determine the values in an input screen via a BAPI. We have chosen the latter method, in other words, to read in the values via a BAPI and save via transaction MM01. Let's have a look at what happens when a template is selected from the drop-down list and the script MM01 apply reference.txt is processed. At the top, the selected template is read in and the variables including material number, storage location, and others are set. Then the industry and the material type of the template are set using the create table command with the Mara table. Having completed these steps, we move on to the next phase, reading the actual values of the template. The code is near the bottom, where the Continue push button initiates the input script MM01 quick read txt. The quick read script begins by checking that all required fields have been specified. For example, that a material number, a plant, a storage location, and a sales organization have been entered. If any one of these fields is empty, an error message will be displayed. We can demonstrate this by deleting the plant, trying to continue, and receiving an error message, which disappears when we specify a plant number. Note that the drop-down list for the storage location is specific to the plant and is read in anew each time a different plant is selected. Now things get a little more technical as we use the SAP BAPI interface. Here we call the BAPI material get all, which reads almost all basic data associated with a given material in one step. At the top, we have the organization levels as export parameters, and further down as import parameters, we have diverse material characteristics. The GUI XT call interface saves all data in external format so that they can be displayed immediately without further conversion. Using transaction SE37, we can see how the functional module BAPI material get all is defined under display. These are the parameters we have to import, including material number and organizational level. And then the export returns the following parameters as structures, with large numbers of components, where we see the longer BAPI descriptions on the left and the 5-letter codes used in the transactions on the right. Let's now start a test environment and execute the functional module for material M01. It's a good idea to save all input values in a test data directory. That way you don't have to enter the values repeatedly. The results screens display the organization levels as well as the basic material data, which can be clicked on. Further below are tables with material descriptions. For example, in various languages, and the long tests. All this information is now available in the input script, and the next step is to associate the longer BAPI descriptions with the variable names we previously defined in the script. After the BAPI call, it is advisable to query for error messages, and if necessary, display the message and exit the input script, as is seen in the following test run. Although the name of the BAPI is getAll, it unfortunately does not give us all parameters we need for our quick display. This means we still have to read the customs tariff preferences directly from the MAPE table in a separate step. Furthermore, we need to make some changes in the date format. Next, we associate the longer BAPI descriptions with the 5-letter variable names generally used for SAP transactions. And read the weight data from the units of measure table. And finally finish up with renaming parameters pertaining to plants and sales. Next in this tutorial, we want to practice adding a new field to our fast material entry screen at the bottom of the list of basic data for the material. Let's select an additional field by going into MM02. Under the Basic Data 2 tab, we find Commodity Management with the field Physical Commodity. Using F1 Help, technical information gives us the technical name of the screen field, in this case, Mara Commodity. Our plan is to first display this field with its label, second, to read it with the BAPI, and finally, to save it when activating the Continue push button. Let's start with displaying the field. To remind us, we want the field to be displayed in transaction MM01 Fast Material Entry under Basic Data, after the EAN category and the packaging materials. Finding the spot in the script, quick step 2, we put in a comment with the new parameter name and copy the previous code. Both in the text and the drop-down list lines, the variable names are changed to commodity. Activating the script, we see that the fields are both displayed on one line, which we can fix by adjusting the coordinates. When we activate the script again, things look much better, and because of the dictionary reference, these lines will automatically appear in all languages with the correct labels. However, the drop-down list is still empty, because we have yet to define a drop-down list for our new variable named DD1 tab MM01 commodity. The generation of the drop-down list involves writing a new include statement in this case for MM01 DD1 gen commodity.txt in read organizational data, where there is exactly one include per drop-down list, and saving. The list is alphabetical for better convenience. Let's have a look at the script for bonus. The implementation is almost identical for all drop-down lists and essentially involves reading a SAP value table and a SAP text table and combining these tables to make the drop-down list. Let's copy the code and go into the commodity script, paste, and change bonus to commodity throughout. But now we have the problem of not knowing the names of the two tables we have to read for commodity. The fastest way to find this out is to open a new session with MM02, go to Basic Data 2, Commodity Management, Physical Commodity, press F1 Help and Technical Information, then double-click on Data Element, double-click the entry under Domain, then go into the Value Range tab. At the bottom, the name of the value table is displayed, TBAC PhysCom. This is one of the names we need. Now double-click on the table, select Commodity, and using the menu Go to Text Table, the name of the table is indicated, in this case TBAC PhysCom T. In most cases, the text table name is the same as that of the value table with a T at the end. While we are here, let's also make a note of the field names, Lang GUI for language key and text for physical commodity description. Back in the commodity drop-down list script, we can use find and replace for the table name and then make the remaining changes manually. After saving the script, we go to the Fast Material Entry screen to test the code. But the list is still empty. That is because in order for the drop-down list to be generated anew, we need to initiate a new session. Having done that and running the transaction, the list looks good, but the field value has still not been entered automatically. In order to have the physical commodity value in our template displayed automatically, we first run transaction MM02, use material M01, select a value for physical commodity, for example, cocoa, and save. To test, let's run MM01, go into quick entry mode, choose a template, and see that there is still no value for physical commodity. However, this is not really surprising because the value has not yet been transferred from the BAPI. That means our next step is to go back to the MM01 quick read.txt script, to the BAPI call, and a little further down where we transfer the client data. Let's duplicate the last line, enter commodity as our field name, and now find out what the value here is called in the BAPI. The fastest way to do this is using transaction SE37, looking up the BAPI Material Get All functional module, pressing Display, Export, Client Data, searching for commodity, where we find out that the field name is physical commodity. Back in the script, we complete the set statement with the new field name, physical commodity, making sure it is written in lowercase letters. Finally, we need to go up towards the beginning of the script to the Create Structure statement for client data to add our new field at the end of the list because the XT call interface always only gets specified columns. With that, let's save the script and test MM01. Fast Material Entry, Template 2, Continue, and yes, cocoa now appears in the physical commodity field. Thus, we have successfully read in a new value and want to turn our attention to the final step, namely saving. Saving takes place in the background in transaction MM01. Let's go into the MM01 quick step 2 script, find the Save push button, and open up the corresponding script. In the section in which our basic data variables are assigned to their appropriate fields, we can duplicate the last line and replace the name with commodity. And that's all we need to do in this script in order to include a new field in the save process. Then save. And test another session of fast material entry with template 2. Under commodity, let's select something different. For example, gold, which might be a more relevant commodity, and save, which initiates MM01 in the background. To see if everything worked, we go into MM02 and select Basic Data 2. Go down to Physical Commodity, but there is no gold in sight. Rather, the previous value, cocoa, is still indicated. We must have done something wrong. Let's first check the field name again via F1. Mara commodity, as we thought. Looking again at the input script, we see an error flag on the left, telling us that the screen element, Mara commodity, has not been found. The spelling is correct, but it turns out that we've put the command in the wrong place, under the Basic Data 1 tab. However, its correct location is under Basic Data 2. Having moved the line in the script, let's save and test again. Finally, gold is indicated as the physical commodity. With that, we have gone through all of the steps necessary to generate new fields for the quick entry mode. Looking at the drop-down lists in the Fast Material Entry screen, we see that they are sometimes very long. For example, under base units of measure. However, often when creating new materials, we don't want all possible options to be displayed, rather only the relevant ones. For example, for gross weight, we might only want options gram and kilogram. This is a relatively simple modification for which we need to go to the include statements for the drop-down lists and open the script for the units of measure for weight named GEWEI. Here, all units of the dimension mass are read from table T006. T006A has the corresponding labels. all we need to do is to add a condition, namely that only gram and kilogram are to be included in the drop-down list. This principle can be applied to all other drop-down lists as required. After saving, we start a new session with MM01 to ensure that the drop-down list is read anew. Go into Fast Material Entry, choose Template 2, press Continue, and see that now the drop-down list for gross weight includes only grams and kilograms. All in all, the scripts presented here for MM01 Quick Entry offer a well-structured basic framework that can be adapted to your needs in many ways. Having some prior GUI XT experience with simple applications is advantageous when undertaking these modifications, because the implementation of the long texts and the entry tables is somewhat demanding. As the last step in this video, we want to implement an individualized check routine. Our goal is to check that the user entered an exactly 6-digit long old material number. Going to the beginning of the save script, let's add the comments: check user input, old material number length 6, ? Using the option string length in the set command, we get the length of the user input. In this query, we can ask if the length is not 6 for an error message requesting an old material number with 6 digits to be returned. Status line specifies that the message be displayed in the status line and not in a separate pop-up window. Set cursor moves the cursor to the field in question. And save. Individualized check routines such as this can be implemented on demand in addition to the standard SAP checks. Let's test our code, calling up the fast entry mode and template 2 anew, and entering an inadmissible old material number, and see that the error message pops up in the status line. If we leave the field blank, we also get an error message. And if we enter exactly 6 digits, the save process works as it should. And that brings us to the end of our tutorial about fast material entry in single screen mode. The scripts discussed in this video are available via the link below and can be used to develop your own solutions.